have a friend who this morning was like, I'm driving upstate. I scheduled a silent meditation retreat for today.
All right.
And I was like, how's that going to go?
I would like to not be alone with my feelings right now. Thank you very much.
Like, I don't know. I scheduled a meeting with a stranger this week for some reason unknown to anyone. And Adriana was like, Sarah, you cannot be raw dogging strangers this week. Raw dogging them for coffee. But then that person canceled because there was a train fire. And I was like, listen, that feels on brand. Let's do it another time.
Welcome to the train fire.
Anyway, how is everyone out there? We're terrible, but we are here for you. Welcome, everyone, to Fated Mates. I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels, and I write them.
And you cure ballads.
Yeah, well, I'm curing ballads right now. We'll talk about it after this other person here introduces herself.
I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor.
And it's the week after the election here in the United States. And I don't know if you've heard, but it didn't go super great for Jen and me. And it's really about us.
Oh, listen. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to do today, and then people can decide their bandwidth for listening.
I think we're going to do great today.
All right.
Everybody should
listen.
We're not going to do this.
Yes,
we're not going to talk about the election, Jen.
Yeah.
I mean, look, go online. Everybody's talking about the fucking election.
Well, and see, this is a good choice I have made, is that I have not been online. I took all of social...
Chronically online
Jen was like...
Chronically offline.
This is not serving me at this moment. The goal today is to not talk about what happened, right? But rather to talk about... Eventually, we will talk about moving forward.
We're not really ready for that right now because we're each having sort of a mental break in our own way.
Yeah, right. Like a real...
Jen has I left the internet.
I have left the internet. That's true. I took all of the social media apps and all the news apps off my phone.
Good job.
And at school, the paywall is very intense, so I can't get through to them anyway. And you know what? I have needed that. But yeah, that's not usually me. I'm like, let me go fight with these idiots. Nope, not anymore.
Yeah. And I have been obsessively curing ballots, which... I don't know if that's useful or not, but it's a thing I'm doing.
One of the states you were working on did flip. So, in fact...
North Carolina, we flipped a district.
See?
Or I don't know if we flipped it or held it, but it doesn't matter. It's blue.
It's blue.
Listen, everybody, by this time we might actually know about the state of the House of Representatives, but I am, as I said to somebody this morning, half agony, half hope when it comes to the House of Representatives. And then I qualified 90% agony, 10% hope, which is... less poetic for Jane Austen purposes, but more accurate for my purposes.
So that's all to come. And I think all of us have been doing a lot of soul searching about lots of things this week. And so before we launch into any of it, I would like to say that our soul searching, Sarah's or mine, might be directly at odds with your soul searching. And we are not, we just are trying to talk about our feelings, which romance loves, and, and hopefully do it in a way that just feels personal to us, and maybe you will find solace in those thoughts, or you can help you with yours, or you're like, I hate these women, whatever.
That's fine too. Listen, it's all welcome here. I don't think you will hate us though, because we're just I think ultimately, Jen, okay, here's what I was thinking. Aside from, I've been thinking a lot of things, but when I sort of have been thinking about romance, here's what I've been thinking.
Ooh, tell me.
I was trying to do the math on this fucking podcast that we do because it's 7 years in. And so we started in 2017. 2018. I don't know how to do math. It wouldn't be 27. Yeah, it's 7 years.
Yeah, we just started our seventh year.
We just started our seventh season.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. So, so it's been, however long it has been. And things got rough Like we started during the first administration, things got rough, Roe was overturned, and then we sort of said like, well, what the fuck are we going to do, right? Because season 1 was IAD, and season 2 was the books that blooded us, like the books that we really think made us romance readers. So if you actually are a new romance reader and like thinking about like where do I go from wherever we are right here in romance, and like there are a lot of people talking right now about like where we are in romance, and we're not going to do that today because we're not in that mix right now. But like season 2 was a real banger because like we really did revisit a bunch of books that really made us who we were. So I mean, obviously it was a banger because it was about us. But the and then season 3 was joy. And it was joy because Roe got overturned, and we thought to ourselves like, well, if we think about romance as being just sort of designed to give us the promise of joy, right? And hope, whatever that means, right? Like hope is essential to romance. It's bedrock to us. Then here we are again.
Yeah.
Right? And like it is very hard this week to think about joy, right? And hope. But the reality is like we are half agony, half hope. And that's what the books are. And I know that's a platitude, I should say, but like I don't actually think, like I really do believe that this is part of the DNA of the genre.
Right. And that's what I was going to say too. Like I found myself thinking a lot about the beginning of the modern genre, right? Like The Flame and the Flower. And like the books about men coming back from Vietnam, and about, right, which I've always been super interested in, about, historicals that were not just about like, white people in ball gowns. And romance to me has always been about not just like joy, but hope. Like the idea that no matter how bad the world might be, that there was a kind of radical, almost solace in the idea that you could find a peace and love at home, in your home.
Mm-hmm.
Or and acceptance, right? That no matter how bad things have been ever in the world, there have been people who had the bravery to look around and say, I'm not going to give up, right? Like I care about these people in my life. I care about the people I love, that this is an important thing to feel and let myself experience, right? And that no matter how bad things are, that people have always longed for that. And I mean, I think many people have heard me say this. Like I always read romance, but I didn't. But when after 2016, I exclusively read romance, really through a lot of that presidency, because I was just like this. I just want to read about people who are like, I can find happiness in some way despite these dark times. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think of course we'll return to that. That there still will be a place for, I mean, I think I said like on Wednesday morning, I woke up and saw, that like it had been called for Trump. And I thought, oh my God, we should take down the mermaid episode. Like, that's crazy. What on earth? And then I was like, no, you know what? And all day long, I got messages from people that were like, thank you for this today. And I just thought, you know what? Like, it can't just be like this joyless march.
No. And this is the other thing that I want to say, sort of tacked on to this. I have talked a lot about authors against book bans. We've talked about it on the podcast. Book bans are here. They exist. They are all around the country. We expect they will get more frequent. What I want to say to the writers out there who are listening, and this is specifically for writers, is nothing has changed. We need your stories. Do not obey in advance. And, lots of people have been talking about how, art art and storytelling becomes more and more critical in times like this when we are at sea and trying to figure out like where we go, what we do, how we fight, whatever the question is that is, floating through your mind right now. We need it. We need your stories, and we need stories of hope and joy more than ever.
So what we're going to talk about today is kind of comfort reads.
The warm blanket of romance.
Just like reading in general.
So can we talk about a couple things?
Yeah.
I have things I want to start with. We did an episode a year or so back, maybe longer, about break in case of emergency.
Yeah. Oh, it was years ago, I'm sure.
And Eric was like, yeah, what is time? And Eric at the time was like, this is an insane concept. Like, I remember when he was editing the episode,
wait,
he was
you're
like,
talking about books you haven't read?
he was like, this is dumb. Like, I don't understand what your problem is. Like, just read the fucking books. And I was like, that you don't understand. Like, you don't understand. And then what was especially amazing is then the episode went live, and a bunch of people were like, oh yeah, here are my break-in case of emergency
He was like,
books.
what is up with you?
Which was really terrific.
That was actually in 2022, and it was I don't know if you remember, a reader requested it. Like two, I think, sisters won it, and yeah, right. What's in the box?
So it's very funny because I was talking to Louisa Darling, who has not been on the podcast yet, but I expect will someday be on the podcast. But we have really enjoyed her historicals, and she used to write as Louisa Edwards. And I really love her contemporaries as well. And we were talking, and she told me she was reading Gorilla Twins last week. And listen, couldn't pick a better. She was like, it was a breaking case of emergency book. And like, I knew on Monday, I was like, I can't, like, I'm going to have to read. And so she had a Lorraine locked and loaded. She had, I still don't know the title of that book.
The Earl Takes All.
The Earl Takes All. And then it's funny because I told my daughter this morning, I have to record a podcast when we get home. And she said, what's it about? And I said, like, comfort reads, like books that you go back to and you read again and again, like a warm blanket book. And she went, are you going to talk about Gorilla Twins? Without even knowing. And I was like, no, but I am going to tell everybody that you told me that you asked me that.
A+.
Here's the truth. Lorraine Heath, and I've said it before and I will say it until I die, just knows the job.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love it.
So I know, I will say, so before, I don't know if we're doing this now and talking about books, but
we're just doing what we're doing today, Sarah.
I downloaded the ebook copy of the book that she has coming out on New Year's Eve.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like, usually everybody, I think I said this.
You don't read it Lorraine in advance.
I don't. I read Lorraine when she comes out because I am always afraid that, like, if I read it too early, there might be too long of a, like, I don't know. It's breaking case of emergency, but not. And then I was like, no, fuck that. I have access to this book.
Yeah.
It's about a hot air balloonist, like, and a desert island duke. Come on.
It's
like the dream. What would you give to be a hot air balloonist crashing on a desert island where a duke is
that sounds
today?
Very nice. It really does. It really does. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, so I mean, it's like kind of like reading is solace, romance, you know what I mean? Like all that is like.
Have you broken glass yet? I haven't really been able to focus.
No. So I have been, okay, so ready. Okay, I'm going to admit something. I'm a little embarrassed by it, which is like I took all these things off my phone.
By the way, I'm really proud of you for that. I haven't said that to you, but I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, it's because I just know how I am, right? Like it's like muscle memory. And I was just like, I need to power down. I'm going to have to like pace myself. And so you know what else? Here's another thing that happened this morning. So I have, everyone knows, I think, an uneasy relationship with litfic in many ways, just for whatever reason. I used to read tons of it, and now I don't as much anymore. I sometimes just find it frustrating. It's whatever. I love genre fiction, but I do subscribe to, there's a litfic author I really like named Caitlin Greenidge. She's a Black woman
Yeah.
who I think I'm not sure where she teaches or if she teaches, but she has an occasional Substack. And she one dropped into my mailbox this morning, and it was Dorothy Allison died this week, who wrote Bastard Out of Carolina. Remember that? When everybody was reading
vaguely,
that book?
I remember that. Yes.
And it was an interview that she had with Dorothy Allison. I'll put this in show notes, everybody, so you can click on it then. In 2016, right after Trump was elected. And I found myself reading it, and what I found myself thinking was, oh, I think what I probably am going to end up doing is reading nonfiction, right? Like I find that there's my comfort reading for me often is like, I don't know, like it goes in lots of different directions. All reading is comfort reading for me because I love it so much. But in this interview between the two of them, they were talking about essentially like Trump winning in 2016. And Dorothy Allison, along with writing Bastard Out of Carolina, was like a feminist thinker and a scholar and all this stuff. And it was really interesting. And so Caitlin Greenidge asked her, what are some of the limitations of fiction writing? And Dorothy Allison said, well, contrary to popular belief, it can't save your life. It can't buy you justice. God knows for a long time I thought it could and worked very hard in that direction. And the other complicated thing is I do believe that a great novel can change a culture. But at the same time, the culture resists being changed mightily. And it goes on to talk about essentially like culture as being like a river. And one of the things about American culture is that it is just deeply misogynistic, right? And she was talking about Hillary, but of course I was thinking about Kamala. And I found myself thinking a lot about, that idea that like what I really believe about romance is that it has the power to change culture, right? And that is both good and bad. Right. And really thinking to myself about like the kinds of stories that I am going to value in romance now. And, I found myself thinking like, I will be very interested in going back and reading some of those old Vietnam hero romances, which were really explicitly for me about undoing the damage that war had done to these men.
Yeah.
Right.
Toxic masculinity.
Yes.
Breaking down toxic masculinity. And I think you're absolutely right. I think when this week, when I sort of loaded up the books that I wanted to read, my comfort reads do not change, right? Like I have a standard, and I don't know that we have done that episode that's like, these are the books that I go back to every freaking time. Like I think I have talked about all of those books, but like
not in that
never
lens,
explicitly in that through that lens. But for me, my comfort reads are all, to almost a letter, toxic men who must be destroyed and the women who do that. And I was so certain post 2016 that was the thing we were going to return to as a genre, because it felt right to me in a lot of ways. And then I think what we actually did is we went to a partnership romance, right? We went toward like, imagine heroes who are on your side from the jump. And for me, I think that is a true fantasy, culturally for us. And I prefer thinking about the genre as didactic through break them and rebuild them. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to see them crawl so that like I feel like I want to see the work. Like I want them to show their work.
Right. Not arrive
like post patriarchy. And I think that that's a thing that it is difficult to find those books right now in front list, is what I will say. largely. This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Lumi Gummies. Free THC gummies delivered legally nationwide. Lumi Gummies have a whole rainbow of flavors and feels and offer sativa, hybrid, and indica effects, so you can choose the kind of vibe you're looking for. And our listeners really came out for Lumi this week.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I definitely leaned very hard into the anxiety-reducing properties of a Lumi gummy this week.
Somebody commented on our Instagram post, which flavor of Lumi gummies is right for election night?
Yeah, well, exactly. And any number of them. So everybody really have been using them this week. This is sleeplessness has been plaguing me. So if I wake up in the middle of the night and I felt sleepless, I would take a gummy, which would just really help me relax and be able to get back to sleep. We have to be able to function. And so, having something that helped me reduce my anxiety and let me sleep has been super helpful. I just re-upped recently and I really like the cotton candy ones. And I think that is what I have been enjoying this week.
So if you would like to try the anxiety-reducing properties of Lumi Gummies, you can do that by going to lumigummies.com and using the code FATED50 for free gummies with a limited time $50 off coupon. If it's too late and if you're listening to this months from now and you want to try a different code, you can always use the code FATEDMATES, all one word, for 30% off your order. So again, that's lumigummies.com and use the code FATED50 at checkout for a free jar of gummies for a limited time. And then anytime after that, you can use Fated Mates for 30% off and free shipping on your order. Again, that's Lumi Gummies and code FATED50. Thanks to Lumi Gummies for sponsoring this week's episode.
I think I'm going to be digging back into the Kindle and to reading some of these old, Elizabeth Lowell and, much to my shame, probably Linda Howard books.
We never support it, but, what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Oh, no, for me, it's IAD.
Oh, yeah.
I opened up Sweet Ruin last night. Because, that's a warm blanket for me. He is poison to everyone but her, Jen.
Yeah, I found myself wanting to go back and read Black Dagger Brotherhood.
God, those men break.
Yeah, Lover, Rage, and Mary.
Oh, Lover, Rage, and Mary.
Listen, Rage.
Lover, Jane, and Vicious. No, and so listen, this is where I am, but also I pulled out a Heart of Blood and Ashes yesterday too.
Yeah, well, because that's the angry heroine.
I mean,
yeah.
Listen, everybody, I'm really fucking mad, and I want heroines who are mad. I want heroines who won't take his shit, and I have wanted them for many years. And so now I'm you know what? This is a difficult week. And so I'm going back to the old reliables.
One of the critiques I have of a lot of current, kind of the current rom-com, the current contemporary state of it in general is just how to not it's not this just there are no fangs, there's no teeth, right? And I'm fascinated by it. Because I'm wow, look around. It's all teeth. It's all fangs. I found myself thinking a lot about the episode we did for Day of the Dead and Halloween, which was about, the pandemic, how we thought the pandemic showed up in romance. And that, that was a episode we did in 2024, 4 years later. Because one of the things I also firmly believe is that the evolution of how romance processes any given societal change can not be predicted in advance and cannot be planned in advance. I really believe in sort of whatever mystical power that is that just makes that happen. And so I am not necessarily, I'm curious about what will happen next, but I would never, I think, be foolish enough to make a prediction about what I think will happen next. because I don't think it can be predicted.
No. I mean, I think if anything, I was so flatly wrong about what came after that. But I mean, now, like you said, like hindsight really is 2020. Like there are some things that are very clear to me now. Like the, the rise of death in the books, right? Like is such an obvious connection, right? But I think there are a lot of other things that I'm sort of like not interested in talking about today that feel very obvious to me now. Like, oh, that's what that was. Like, I see it now with a very clear vision because the reality is, and we've said this a million times, and like, it's so funny because the other day I have not been completely distant from social media, but like I have been quiet on, so I've just been watching, a silent observer. And I saw a very new, like, sparkling new romance novelist this week say like, oh, hey, it's possible that romance is reflecting society. And I was like, it is possible that is happening.
Well done.
No, listen, we all have to listen.
Yeah,
we all
course.
have to
We're all
come
on
to
our
it,
journey.
right?
Yeah.
So this is not me. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying like, yeah, we all like, she is very new and like figuring it out. And I think that sort of reflection piece, we knew something was happening, but when you're in it, you can't see it.
I guess I would also say like the things that have worried me, the things I have seen that I've been like, what's this all about? Now feel like, oh, portents.
I also think we are well served as a genre to not throw the idea of fantasy out. And I mean that with a small f. Like, when I said like these kind of like white men who are very supportive of their heroines and like sort of fade into the background and like really just like lift her up, that is a underline italicized fantasy. And it feels like, what does that mean? Like, what are we saying? What are we asking for? What are we choosing for ourselves, for the people around us? What are we hoping people will take away from our books? Like, there are a lot of questions. I think I am always worried when people look to genre and say, oh, that's just like entertainment.
Genre carries the myth, right? Like,
genre carries the myth. And so I think like don't get tricked into believing that like the books don't matter, because they are all saying something. And whatever is about to come in the next 4 years, the books are going to say something, and we won't know what they are saying.
So everybody, after the I See Dead People episode, I Read Dead People episode, Molly Harper said something really interesting on social media, which was basically like, I don't think I realized I was writing a pandemic book until I listened to them talk about it. And then I realized I did. Of course I did.
Yeah. But like, why would you know that in the moment?
Right. But then like looking back, she was like, oh, wait, I wrote about this woman literally trapped on an island. She couldn't get off.
Yeah.
And so I think, right, I think that about that a lot. One of the things I have been also really curious about is, and everyone knows I dabble in other genres, right? Like I, read Reacher and I'll read a thriller, I'll read a mystery, but I am in no way like entrenched. I would be really fascinated to know what the horror people and what the mystery people are feeling right now.
Oh my God. Wait, I have something I want to talk about. At the beginning, everybody, we were like, I don't know what we're going to talk about. Wait, you guys. Okay. And then we really do have to get into books because like we have like sponsors and things. Okay. So producer Pat and Clayton from Learning the Tropes have a podcast of their own. It's called the BO Boys, and the BO stands for box office. And it's like a comedy podcast about like movies. And essentially what they do is they release an episode at the end of the week where they make predictions for like which movies over the weekend are going to be the biggest movies. And then they release like a second episode or first episode in the week, like post weekend, where they then like talk about those movies, like talk about, but also it's very funny and like if you're into movies, this is a very fun thing. It's a fun episode, a fun podcast for you. Anyway, they are both horror aficionados. Like both of them I think Pat really loves horror, but like Clayton, likes horror. And we went to a live taping it was either right before Halloween or right after. I think it was right before Halloween of their podcast because we support live podcast recordings here in our house. And they had a guy who is like an expert on horror movies up. And he was talking about, there's a movie that was very, like, incredibly popular, like, top of the box office, that was an indie horror movie that, like, was so gruesome and it's called Terrifier 3. It's, like, about a clown who's, like, also, it's basically, like, gore. It's torture porn, but with a clown, which sounds
it's too scary
horrifying.
For Jen.
I mean, like, sounds horrifying. And it's really just like so bloody and like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And like an indie, and horror is really interesting because I've talked about this many years ago on the podcast. We talked about this, but I'm really fascinated by horror. I'm a scaredy cat, but I'm really fascinated by it in general because I think it is the film version of romance in books. Meaning like, I think people in movies, like in cinema, look down on horror.
Right.
The way people in literature look down on
like you're just making these schlocky movies. Like,
like they don't mean anything. And this guy, and I wish I remembered his name, I'll put it in show notes. And the episode is they released the episode. So like we'll link to the episode if this is something you're interested in. But he was basically talking about how like Terrifier 3 is so fucked up. And he was like, and I actually left the movie theater thinking like, are we okay? And then he was like, and I don't think we are okay.
Yeah.
We were all like, we're not okay. Yeah. And so now I'm like, wait a second, is horror, and honestly, like, I also, like, in the taxi on the way home, I was like, Eric, maybe we should have, like, a horror guy on the podcast, like, talk about, like, because it does feel like we're all kind of connected in a way. I don't know if everybody would like that. Tell us if you would like to hear that. But he was like, I don't think we're okay. Like, and when a horror guy is like, it's so weird and gross and fucked up that like, I'm worried that horror's not like the world isn't okay. And I think indie horror films fall into the same bucket in a lot of ways as like indie romance is doing too. And like, I appreciate that indie romance is doing two things, right? Like it's making space for marginalized authors that traditional publishing is not making space for. And we have to talk about that in a bit. But it's also making space for just like this kind of like pool of indie romance that's doing something very different than what traditional publishing is doing. In the same way, I think.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, but that's it. I found myself thinking, like, what are the other, like, genre people? You know, like, how are they all feeling? Right? Like, what's the experience? Like, right? What are all the signs that we were like, oh, yeah, those were signs?
Yeah. And, like, I guess, like, if you're out there and you write sci-fi, like, I know we have listeners who, like, do these other genres but listen to us, like, please, like, shoot us an email, or I'm Sarah at Fate of Mates, Jen is Jen at Fate of Mates, like, we tell us what you're thinking too, because we would love to. Maybe we do a roundtable episode and just drop it in the feed, right? Like it wouldn't be a regular episode but a bonus, and I would really be interested in that.
Yeah, no, me too, because I think that now that I understand, I mean, look, however many 7 seasons in, I feel like I could say, like, look, I understand what romance does. I understand what it does for itself. I understand what it's saying about the world. And I'd be really interested to talk to like other genre experts and be like, what did you see?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I think there's something to this in the sense of like Butcher and Blackbird, right? Like 2 serial killers, like one waking up and like next to a cadaver covered in maggots in a romance novel. Are we okay? Like.
Well, and I was like, no. And you were like, well, I like it.
But you don't like gore. But like, you don't like bodies. But like, are we okay? And maybe we're not.
Yeah.
Seems like maybe we're not.
Maybe we're not.
But literally, I was sitting in this bar, this like dark bar, listening to this horror guy go, even this might have been too much for me. And I was like, oh, okay. I see. Like, but Jen, you're that guy. Like, this might be too much for me. The expert who just is like,
something's off here. This isn't, we're doing something, but it's not what we've been doing.
What's going on?
And you know what? I think I think the tension is always between expanding the tent and then like wondering, or no, is this something that like, right? Like, what is this a signal or a sign of, right? Like genres change.
But it's interesting, especially because this genre, I mean, obviously we've talked about it. It's like a million generations worth of romance in 50 years, right? But for the first 40 of those 50 years, the pool was limited, right? It was traditional publishing and then like Radcliffe in her print shop in her barn, right? Like doing like a very different kind, like inventing Bold Strokes books so that there was space for lesbian writing, right? And then suddenly internet came and or you know, ebooks came and suddenly the pool just exponentially expanded.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is brought to you by Max Monroe, author of Meet Me at Midnight.
This one is like made in a lab for Sarah, Jen. Okay. Juniper Perry, our heroine, has had a crush on Bo Banks, her best friend's older brother, for basically ever. He's like perfect in every way. He's so charming. He's so funny. He's so handsome. He's got these beautiful eyes and this warm smile. And she's just like, oh, she is gone for him. She has it bad. Problem is, Bo does not have it bad. Like Juniper is just like his sister's friend. And he gets her an internship at his company where she basically like pines for him all day and pretends not to. And then like by accident, it turns out that they become neighbors because he's like temporarily living in the condo next door. And it's just like, oh, it's awful because she just wants him so much. And then they get access to, at the company, they're doing some marketing for a new app called Midnight. And the concept behind the app is that it's all anonymous. Like there are no photos, no videos, no messages get saved. It's just you and another person talking, like in the darkness. And Juniper figures out a way to interact with Max over Midnight, the app. And he doesn't know that the woman who he's talking to and falling for is his kid sister's best friend. Ooh. And when he finds out, woof, it's going to be good. I believe in Max Monroe.
So if you are interested in this best friend's older brother, boss employee romance, you could check it out in print, ebook, or with your monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks to Max Monroe for sponsoring this week's episode. See you at midnight. I believe in the power of romance for me to bring me solace and joy and comfort, right? To be the warm blanket I cozy up with. And so for me, one of the things that has been this week has been some audiobook listening.
Oh, really? What are you listening to?
So I have been re-listening from the top to Natalie Kanya's Chicago series. The first book is called a Dish Best Served. No, that was the second one. The first book is called A Proposal They Can't Refuse. I really like this narrator quite a bit.
What's her name? Do you know?
Her name is Valentina Ortiz, and I'm pretty sure that she does all three because let me just double check that that's true. Her name, Valentina Ortiz. And one of the reasons I really like this series is because I am like all politics are local and it is set in Chicago, right? And so it's like, it just feels really like comforting and close to home. the other thing I really like about this book is I, of course, have read these books with my eyes, the whole series. I listened to the second audiobook. I've never listened to the first one. So my plan is to go 1, 2, 3. Is I do not speak Spanish. And but quite a bit of the dialogue, this is a big Puerto Rican family. They're talking to each other in Spanish a lot. The sounds of the streets, the sounds of the places that, the bars that they're in, the restaurants. And so one of the things I also really like about this book is that it feels like being out on the block in Chicago and hearing people's voices and hearing people talking. And so I basically turned on book number 1 as I was driving to work one day this week and found that to be a real anchor, right? Pulling me back down to earth in the place that I already am, because I just felt so numb. That they're terrific audiobooks. And again, one of the things that's interesting about audiobooks is sometimes the narrator there's one narrator, even though it's dual point of view. So she's kind of just reading the whole book. And so it's not a full, two narrators, but I'm really loving it. So, it's the Vega Family Love Stories is the name of the series by Natalie Kenya. And the first one is called A Proposal They Can't Refuse.
The way that I thought about the books that I wanted to talk about today was I went to my Kindle and I was like, all right, what are the books that kind of sit in the top?
Yeah, right.
The first few pages. And Sweet Ruin is there. I said there's some Lorraine Heaths there. Scoring Off the Field, Naima Simone, Scoring Off the Field. And Adriana's On the Hustle, right? Which is a very similar vibe. These are both two women who are fuck everything. I am done with these men. I have to get out of here. And then the men are just on the back foot. And man, I just love that. I love it when they take off. While I'm talking about it, I feel here, the holy trinity of that concept. Listen, I'm about to say a thing. The holy trinity of she fucking takes off because she cannot deal anymore is, and kind of in order of intensity, is lowest to highest, is Scoring Off the Field, On the Hustle,
Run, Posey, Run.
What is it, Jen? Run, Posey, Run. Listen,
hard agree.
I just created the greatest week of reading of your life. You're welcome, everybody.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, those. God.
Imagine that. Wait, I might do that. I might read those 3 in that order.
This is a trope that I really love. And I think I realized that it was there are a lot of old Elizabeth Lowells, essentially. She's peace out.
Oh, she loved
There
that.
was a book called Chain Lightning. Do you remember this one? Have I talked about this
Tell
book?
me about it.
I've talked about
I never
this
remember
book.
any
Okay.
of the titles.
In this book.
You've talked about this before? Chain Lightning?
Look, it's been 6 fucking seasons, Sarah. She is afraid of flying or something. I don't know. They end up in Australia. She works for I don't know. I don't remember the plot details. I do, but I'm too embarrassed to go into it. Anyway, they end up and he's I don't trust women, of course. And she's I just, I'm a marine biologist who's afraid to fly. So how am I going to see the ocean?
Yes. Oh my God.
Right.
Yes. Damon Sutter is his name.
Yes. So anyway,
Strangers in Paradise.
Yeah. So they.
Oh, Mandy Blythe.
Mandy.
I'll tell you what it's about, Jen.
I just told you, Sarah.
She is scared of 3 things: water, boats, and planes.
Sure. So she ends up in Australia through they go to see the coral reefs. And listen, at the end of this fucking book.
This is an accidental vacation book.
At the end of this book, they go, she leaves him gets back to the mainland by herself or whatever, and he cannot find her. And then he goes back to the office because his aunt is the one who like did this whole thing. And he's like, where is she? And this is like the 80s. So apparently you could just go into HR and just clean out your file and then no one could ever find you again.
Yeah, because it was online.
Listen, there's nothing was online. They couldn't find you
no
again.
paper trail. So what does he do?
He just searches
search the world
for her. And then when he finally
Forrest
finds
Gumps for her, he just runs back and forth across the country.
He just does laps. When he finally finds her, of course, at the end, she's like pregnant, and he's like, "It's fine. We're gonna have this baby, and I'm in love with you."
But
lol. I reread that at one point.
Do
and
her
was
clothes
like,
make noise? Have we talked about this?
Wait, the bells. Oh yeah, we've definitely talked about the bells. That was in my other favorite Elizabeth Wool, A Woman Without Lies. But this whole fucking business of like, I was like, oh, that is where that got installed. That button was her just being like, "Peace the fuck out, then."
Yeah, Judith McNaught does it too all the time.
God,
they just get the fuck out, and usually like without a coat in the winter. Like they're real dumb about it. Like there's no like I need to stockpile food and money. It's just I'm out in the snow now because this man made me mad.
Sure. But I think that's why Run Posey Run to me was so brilliant because it starts there. It's not the thing that ends the book.
That's all three of these books. It starts there, and then we break the hero right away.
Yes, he's immediately like, "That's what I want."
I don't understand what the problem is, everyone.
Can I have a small detour? So last weekend before the election, in the before times, I went to Connecticut to see Little Romance at college. I think also looking back, I felt very compelled to see him before the election. Like I was just like, look, if it all goes wrong, I would want to have been the last time I saw him to be one where we were happy and not like full of existential dread. And he had class on the afternoon. I got in Friday. And I was reminded by Ella Dawson that there was in Chester, Connecticut, a romance-only bookstore called Montgomery and Taggart. So I drove out there because I was like, well, Little Romance is in class.
Wait, I have questions.
Okay. It is so...
Because Montgomery and Taggart indicates that these people are our people.
Yeah. Listen.
Because many of you out there know the reference, but many of you out there do not know the reference.
It is
and the Montgomerys and the Taggarts are like the greatest two families in romance.
Yes. Right? Are they both Devereux? No. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they marry each other.
That's right. Of course. So anyway,
James Montgomery
drove out to this tiny little Connecticut town and walked into this place. And I'm always like, you guys, I'm so fucking weird. If I ever walk in your romance only bookstore, I'm going to be so weird about it. And I ended up like greeting the proprietress. And she was literally like, oh my.
Did you introduce yourself?
No, I'm too weird about it, Sarah.
She heard your voice.
Yeah. She was like, oh my God. And it was very cool. She was really excited to see me, which was nice. And it was a gorgeous little bookstore in a very cute little town. And it's like,
I want to go there.
Listen, I told her, I was like, well, come. We should, because, Little Romance will be graduating and then I will be in town. And so I was like, yeah, we should go. But anyway, they had hard copies, like paper copies of Run Posey Run. And I was like, I didn't buy it. I really thought about it, but I did buy a lot of really cool stuff in there, including it's a game called Romance versus the World.
No, what is that?
It's like Cards Against Humanity, but romance.
Oh my God. That's unopened.
I know. Who am I going to fucking play it with?
Me.
Okay.
Can we play it online?
I don't know. I have to add it. Like, I guess I could like deal your cards and take a picture.
I'll just get Montgomery and Taggart. I'll go get my own box and then we'll play it. You guys will play it on the Discord.
Right? I feel like that was it. I literally did think that. I was like, there's got to be a way we can play this with people.
This is so fun.
Isn't that the cutest?
That is really fun.
And you know what?
And listen, I knew from the moment they followed me on, I remember cutting and pasting it to you. They followed me on Instagram and I was like, what are these? This is a romance bookstore.
Cute in there. It's adorable.
I can't wait. Well, it's not like super on the way to my mom's house, but it's on the way enough that like it'll add an hour So I think the next time I drive up there, I'm going to do that.
It was really cute inside. It was
Yeah,
adorable.
that's fun.
They had great selections of like books, but also like really cute stuff, like romancy stuff. I bought some Moodang stickers and sent them to Kate. So really adorable. So anyway, look at this other cute book I got. I'm sorry. This is okay. Another comfort thing for me, everybody, is reading Christmas books.
That's fine.
Right?
You're allowed.
I'm allowed. So check. And I also.
You sure you want to talk about that right now?
I'm going to talk about this as a physical item.
Oh, okay.
Which it's funny because I am not really hugely into like sprayed edges, but this book really thrilled me because I thought it was really. So it's a Katie Wilde book. And on one side, it's like Secret Santa. And so you're like looking at it. But then you flip it over. Like, you know what I mean? One of those books where it's like flipped over.
Cute.
And then the other side is All He Wants for Christmas.
Listen, this is what's cool about indie romance right now.
Yeah.
It's like traditional romance isn't doing cool stuff like that.
No, it's so cute, right? So it's like you essentially like flip it over. Like half of it looks upside down to the other half.
I love it.
So yeah,
I love it.
Everybody, it was really cute in there. And I got some Julianne Long books. I bought this cute game. I got that Katie Wilde book. And it was just like, it was really cute. It was adorable.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Jamie P. Bradley, author of Wait, a 3,000 Reasons novella.
Okay, so this series starts off with this Christmas novella where Gina Smith essentially is back home in her small Oklahoma town for the holidays at the annual Christmas party that her family always holds. And basically the problem is that even though she's well in her 20s and is like a serious businesswoman living in Delaware and has a great job at this hotel, everybody in town remembers her as like this reckless, young, wild thing, including some shenanigans she got up to back when she publicly proposed to her high school crush and her sister's ex, Ben Richardson. And wouldn't you know who Sarah is about to walk into this holiday party?
Is it going to be Ben Richardson?
It sure is. He is now a smoking hot Marine. He's still grumpy as ever. And what happens is they end up like sort of chatting this party. And then the next day they get stranded together at the airport as they're trying to exit Oklahoma. And they have this really hot, sexy one night stand. And Ben is like all in, like, okay, Gina, like we're different people now. Let's go for it. But Gina is like, no, you have to wait. I have things I need to prove to myself before I could accept a man full time into my life. And so this book, this novella has it all. Like part of it is he's overseas. So there's, texting and letters and emails. And so, are they going to be able to figure out how to make a Christmas miracle happen and bring these two back together again?
Who can say? It's going to be amazing either way. So if you would like to read Wait, you can do that right now on your local e-reader. If your podcasting app supports it, you can also click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thanks so much to Jamie P. Bradley for sponsoring this week's episode. Don't forget, everybody, we've got Best Of coming very soon.
Next week.
Oh, yeah, next week.
Next week.
How exciting. So get ready for that. We've got a holiday episode.
Once again, our wonderful friends at Pocket Books will be.
Yeah, I don't think you can pre-order yet.
You'll have to wait.
But you will be able to order the box for yourself or a friend, or maybe like put it on your list for Santa or Hanukkah or any number of just genuinely lovely holidays in December. And then we have a holiday romance episode coming, and we've got a new thing coming this year, a new thing that might become a tradition.
Oh, yeah,
for us.
I'm very excited about this.
I know, I'm deep in the reading for that.
This is going to also be, I think, what today's comfort read is going to be for me is like, remember I said I'm going to get into bed with a stack of books? Mm-hmm. This is the stack.
Nice.
Should we talk about what it is? We're just keeping it a secret.
I think we should keep it a secret because I think it'll be very surprising and delightful for the people that we talk about.
Perfect. I agree. I agree.
And you know what? Everybody deserves something surprising and delightful.
Yes.
What else? What other books do you? So yeah, you know what we haven't talked about? I know I said IAD. I said Sweet Room, but we should really talk about the fact that everyone, and I'm taking credit for this, by the way, because of course I am, because I'm allowed. Sure. There are reissues in trade. Pocketbooks or Gallery which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster, is reissuing all of the IAD books with these like new, beautifully illustrated covers.
Yeah, it's very distinctive.
The first one,
the style,
came out in October, and A Hunger Like No Other. And Jen,
I know our names are on the back, like not just like faded names, our actual names. I was like, what?
I know. And we say Cressley Cole is the unrivaled queen of romantasy, which I stand by. We didn't say that. We didn't have that word then. But if you're a romantasy girly and you haven't read Cressley, get going. And I'm so delighted that these books are in the world again, that people can get them in like real bookstores on the shelf. And so that makes me happy.
Yeah, I really love the illustration style a lot. What else has been a comfort read for me? I think, so back to my like audiobook thing. I am going to start a puzzle after we are done with this that has been a real, I did like 2 puzzles a week during the pandemic. That was a huge coping strategy for me. And it was always paired with like listening. Again, back to listening. So I think obviously I'm going to be on that Natalie Kenya trip for a while because there's 3 books. But the other audiobook I have ready to go is The Proposition by Judith Ivory.
Which you've never read.
I've never read.
And we have to, should we just do that as our next read along?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's the idea.
All right, everybody, we just made the decision. Our next read along is Judith Ivory's Proposition, which is great. He's a rat catcher. It's a retelling of My Fair Lady, which is a retelling of that myth, which right now is also left my head. Pygmalion.
I was like, let me help you out there, Sarah.
That myth I've always wanted to write a version of.
Sure.
That one.
So yeah, I have a lot of comfort listens, believe it or not. Like I've listened to the Hidden Legacy series.
You're such an audio listener.
Yeah. I do. I think it's, you know what it is? I find it listening to be very like soothing, and it allows me to like be carried away while I'm doing whatever else I'm doing, right?
There is a child in my house, and she has an iPad, and she is not allowed, like basically everything locks down, right? She can only play with like for so long. The only thing that is not locked down is Libby, because of course. And so it actually does force her, like at some point she's just like, okay, I can't do anything else, so I might as well just read. And so, but of course, Libby also has audiobooks, right? The library also gives you audiobooks. And the other day I was like, kid, this is all very familiar. Like, have you been listening to this audiobook for like a long time? Is it a long one? She was like, oh no, this is like my 8th time listening to it. And I was like, amazing. And then I was like, this is a series. There's a second one. And she was like, what? But then Jen, the other day I went in there and she was listening to the first one again. Now I'm like, oh no, that's just it's your warm blanket. For everybody, these are the Drew LeClaire books, which I think I've talked about vaguely. But if you have a middle schooler, Drew LeClaire Gets a Clue.
So cute.
Is the first one, and it's very cute. Drew is like a little sleuth. Just like, yeah,
adorable. So yeah, I think I'm gonna puzzle and listen to some Natalie Kenya today. What else have I been reading? Oh, I want to talk about managing your warm blanket reads. So if you, like me, like whatever, e-reader you use. I actually have a collection called Comfort Reads. Actually, I
Very
like it is called
organized. I don't have
A
that.
plus Comfort Reads so that it is always first.
Look at you. You're like a phone
I'm
book.
like a phone book, right? And one of the things about it is, Comfort Reads change over time. And so sometimes I look and I'm like, oh, I haven't read this book in forever, right? But I do think that, the other thing, and like Sarah and I have talked about this, is like, just looking at your Kindle in a different order. Like let yourself find something that you used to love. I mean, I think that's the thing about romance that I find so fascinating is it's like the things that I love, you kind of forget. And then you're like, oh, I love that book. I mean, so for another thing that I did is I went back and looked. So there is a page on our website, everybody, that has our top 10 books of the year. And we started in 2019. So 2018 was the first year of the podcast. 2019 was our first best of list. So this would have been only a few months before the pandemic, right? The pandemic all happened in season 2. Just crazy. Looking back at some of those, I'm like, oh, I love this book, right? So I think that part of the way that I am like trying to like remember my favorite books or remember what I read is just like kind of like doing some of that stuff, right? Looking at those lists, because of course those are literally my favorites, like looking at my Comfort Reads collection on my Kindle, right? Things like that.
And then I think there's also like, I want to just shout out novellas because one of my favorite comfort reads is Joanna Shupe's Tycoon, which is, I think, like a textbook perfect novella. I also, because I came from historical, my comfort reads are largely like, are often like I lean toward like, oh, I'll go read a Clapus, I'll go read a whatever. Joanna, as you all know, we are on the record for thinking she is just like some of the best of us. And but Tycoon is like 120 pages of just like perfect novella. And it is fast and the pages turn so fast and the conflict's so tight and it's so sexy. And it's just like, oh, you can get into bed at 10 and it is done by 11:30 and you are like delighted.
Yeah.
You go to sleep, you dream of, a handsome man on a train. Imagine if that worked that way. If you were like, I read this great book before bed and now I just dream about that.
Well, that was that one Therese Bahari book, remember?
Yeah. Yeah, you talked about it.
Yeah.
No, that was the first one.
First one. Yeah. I can't remember. The Knight in Shining Armor, the second one, but the first one was when that happened.
Yep. We did a novella. You know what, Jen? We should do another novella episode because we did a novella episode a million trillion years ago. Alyssa Cole was our guest on it. It was like it was maybe during the pandemic.
Probably the end of season 2 is my guess.
Yeah. And so but like, we should do another novella episode because novellas are really like a beautiful, if you like me, I'm just having a lot of trouble like focusing. Like I've been trying to write an email to the Fated States callers all week. Yeah. By the way, everybody, we love you. Thank you so much. It was amazing working with you. You're going to get an email from us at some point. And like every time I sit down, I write like 2 sentences and then I'm like, not even, I write a sentence and a half. Right? And then I like wander off and come back and I'm like, well, what was I planning on saying here? What's going on in this email? So a novella is a nice, like, a tight set.
This week's episode of Fated Mace is brought to you by 1001 Dark Nights, publishers of The Ghost of a Chance by Heather Graham.
So this is a novella in Heather's 38-book-long Crew of Hunters series. And the Crew of Hunters is a elite secret ghost, like paranormal investigation crew that is part of the FBI. Angela Hawkins Crow is the heroine of this novella. She and her husband Jackson have their own book that predates this. But Angela's just like going to the bank in this book, just doing bank stuff, normal bank stuff, when, oops, wouldn't you know it, the bank has a robbery, and she gets taken hostage into the underground bank vault. Here, Jackson is outside with other members of the crew of hunters, freaking out, trying to figure out how he can get in and save the day. But Angela is on her own down there until she realizes that there is a ghost of a Civil War hero,
amazing,
in that tunnel who will not stand for her or anyone else to get hurt. So if you've ever read a Heather Graham book, this is going to be a really fun romantic suspense where some wild stuff happens, but the pages turn and you are just in for a ride.
So if you would like to read this paranormal romance, find out whether or not Angela is going to be reunited with her loved ones on the other side of this bank robbery, then you should check out The Ghost of a Chance. If your podcasting app supports it, you can click on the chapter title right now to be taken to buy the book. Thank you to 1001 Dark Nights and Heather Graham for sponsoring this week's episode. I am an aspirational book buyer, everyone.
Oh, nobody who listens to us
you have
is
no
one of
idea what I'm
those.
talking about. So I think the other thing that I find really helpful at times like this is I will, again, I just move a stack of books with me to wherever I am, and I just allow myself to start them, right? And then see, okay, am I going to stick with it? How interested am I in this right now? Is this I'm done with it? Or is this and this is not only romance. This is literally anything.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Piles of them everywhere.
And piles. But I feel like sometimes the thing that I appreciate about that, or I enjoy about it, is that feeling of okay, this book is maybe not for me right now, or this book's just not for me. But often I just find great solace in reading. Always. And so I think that I will be doing quite a lot of sitting around with my stacks.
Yep. Hey, I have a question.
Yes.
Or I have a thought. I have a thing I want to say to people. I have a little free library outside my house, and it has brought me a lot of joy. And actually, in the last week, it has brought me even more joy because people have stopped, and we had our poster, our signs right underneath the library, and people have stopped and they've said hello. I live in New York City, so it's very, there isn't a very big yard. If I'm outside putting tulip bulbs in the ground, they have no choice but to say hello to me if they stop. Although I am always amused when people pretend I'm not there, and I'm you're literally looking at my thing. But okay. So I will just say, if you have ever if you, like me, for many years thought, oh, maybe I would like to have a little free library, but haven't done it, this is your sign to do it, because it is actually really nice, and it does give you a sort of sense of community in a weird way. People stop and they put their books in, and then, you sort of get to know your neighbors in a weird way. It's a sort of, you never know who left the, this morning I came up, we went for a walk, we came back, and somebody had put Barack Obama's Promised Land in the little free library, face out. So it was Obama. And I was this is my people. Who, and you're and I just get a lot of joy from that. I will say Eric spends a lot of time we live in New York City, so curating out religious pamphlets.
You do have to curate it. I do think that really makes it.
Sometimes there's how to perform heart surgery from 1983.
Right. You know what? We're going to weed this. This person could not surely these are not way, but I can.
I know. But then somebody, I don't know if I ever told this story on the podcast, but last Christmas, around the holidays last Christmas, somebody put their relative, an actual cookbook, not a person's binder.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
And it was punch. And I took it. I was it was punch and fruit salad. And it was how to cook a turkey for 15. And I was I'm taking this. Somebody put this in a binder, like cared. And it had all like their personal notes. It was really lovely. So it now lives on my cookbook shelf. And
I love that.
so anyway, this is your sign. And if you do decide to put up your little free library, please send me a picture or something.
I love it. Okay, so as we are heading towards like wrapping up this episode, which I don't know that we did anything useful, but we are here and so are you. And maybe there's some maybe there's something to be said for that. We want to talk about a couple of things that we've talked about in terms of changing a couple of things about
Moving forward.
Yeah, moving forward. Okay. So, we are going to start changing some of the ways we do links on the podcast page itself. So we have pretty much always done Amazon. We will, of course, still be doing Amazon for people that are in KU. I am a KU reader. Sarah is a KU reader. This is like a really important place that many, many people are putting their books. Discoverability is easier there. People are more likely to take a chance on you, right? So we really want to support the fact that like if a book is in KU, that is the only place it is. However, we also want to support bookstores that are not owned by that person who owns
People.
it. Yes.
And also libraries. And I want to say this, I want to speak specifically to the fact that immediately, I mean, within hours of the election being called, on Instagram, so many bookstores were like, we are open, we are here, come, we are a safe space, we are a community center, you don't have to buy books, you can come and just be with us and like sit with us. And I want to speak to libraries doing that too. Librarians are just so important to this community the community building piece. You know, I've been saying this to Jen and to others in my life, but like, we weren't going to talk about the election and we're still not, but I will just say, like, apropos of nothing, fascism puts its boot on your neck by like limiting your ability to build community. And independent bookstores, if you are privileged enough to have one in your community, libraries, if you have a supportive librarian and library staff, and you are in a position to be able to use those shops. And I want to acknowledge that like some people's like financial situation means that, Amazon is the best choice and that is okay. Like we are not judging you for that. But what we are saying is like, we see indies and libraries and we honor the work that they are doing.
Yeah. So.
And will be doing.
Right. And will be doing. Yeah. So we are going to encourage everybody who ever, buys books that we recommend using, like our links or whatever, to create an account at bookshop.org. Because what this allows you to do is indicate which indie bookstore you want to support, right? So it happens on like your end, not on our end. And so then any book that is in wide release, right? So Natalie Kanya's books, for example, I might use a bookshop.org link or a Libro FM link rather than an Audible or an Amazon link. So what you're going to kind of see now is like a hybrid kind of style of using those links. We are going to keep using BookBub. And one of the reasons for that is because if you are not...
Do we tell everybody we're using BookBub?
Oh, maybe this is like a new thing. Okay.
Go for it, Jen.
All right. So everybody, we have started to really we created a Fated Mates account. Eric did, everybody. Eric created a Fated Mates account on BookBub and has been backloading in a lot of the books that we have talked about as our recommendations, right? And basically, we're not doing a whole lot of other things. It's like, it's a 5-star read. We say it's an HEA, like, right? Because we talked about it. We just talked about it on an episode. And if you follow us on BookBub, and if you have not created a BookBub account, this is for e-readers. But when you set up your profile, you can say where you buy your ebooks. So you can say Amazon, Kobo, Apple Books, Google Play Books or whatever. You can click all of them if you want. And then if a book that we recommended goes on sale, you get an email. And so again, we really want to, so what we're trying to do is essentially like find as many different ways to get you the books that we have talked about on as many different platforms as possible. That is kind of like just a goal for us moving forward. And, again, no one's abandoning Amazon. We support everybody. We understand that KU is so great for so many indie authors. We want to support that, and we will continue to. We will continue to link directly to your books if they are there. But if they are wide, then we are going to try and use some of these other outlets just so that we can have that trickle-down effect hopefully go to indie bookstores as well.
I also just want to say out loud that as we are moving forward, it is not the worst idea for you to purchase your favorite books in print. So think about that as you're making your holiday lists, as people who in your life are saying, like, what can I get you for your birthday? Or what can I get you for Christmas or for Hanukkah or for, whatever, because I love you. Print copies of your favorite ebooks may someday be very valuable to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to say it. And you know what? Listen, who knows what's to come? But
that's right.
I think that one of the things is because our relationship with romance is so comforting, right? It's just like thinking to yourself, and listen, I've been doing this for years. Right? Like I have paper copies of Managed and Lead and all that stuff, right? So, this is like, a lot. These are just ideas that may or may not speak to you. But I think what we are just really interested in is moving forward is thinking, how can we support the community bookstores that are helping their communities? And so we think that kind of transitioning to having this bookshop.org links for books that are wide and, converting to Libro FM links. And again, you can use whatever platform you are using, but might be a slight difference in what happens when you click on a link from us. That's it.
Terrific. Look at us. Thanks to indies. Thanks to booksellers. Thanks to librarians.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, romance is here for you. We are here for you.
We have some really great episodes planned through the end of the year.
Yep. We are not going away.
No.
I said to Jen the other day, I was like, we're fucking pirate radio.
I'm really excited about some of the episodes that we have planned coming up through the end of the year. So keep listening.
Also, we are aware of next year. We know people are already asking about I have seen a bunch of people recently ask about Fate of Mates Live, and I just want to say we are not it is not happening in March, everyone. So do not worry. Yes, there will probably be a Fate of Mates Live next year, but it is not in March because that ended up being, why did we do that to ourselves?
Well, because it was my spring break, Sarah. But yeah, it'll be in the summer. Everybody. So more information will be coming on that, and hopefully sooner rather than later. But yeah, that's a good point. It will not be in March.
And we are here, and we will definitely have things to say. We said at the beginning we were not going to have things to say, and here we are. We've said some things. But we'll have things to say, and we are here, and yeah.
I want to say I found great. I was not on social media this week. I took all that off my phone, but I did go to our Discord quite a bit, and I found it very comforting to be around other romance readers. Why don't you tell everybody? So if you are looking for a romance reader space that is not like the wide open social media internet, then join our Discord. Join our Patreon. You can get it for $5 a month. And it gives you full access to our Discord, but also to one episode a month that we record that's like just an extra banter episode. We actually just ran that on the live feed for everybody last Tuesday. Look at how smart we were, Sarah. And so if you like to just hear us yapping, then that might be for you. But
more importantly, if you just want to yap with other people.
Right. And that's the part that's best. And there are a million different channels. There is literally a channel for everything. And if you're like, I want a channel for recipes or books I found in my little free library, then we will create a channel for you. And so it's a really robust conversation
platform. Books I found in my little free library would be such a good channel. I'm going to start that today.
You're like, I'm starting it right now.
I am.
Yeah.
That's so
and you know,
fun.
there's just like book people talk about what they're reading. There's like a daily question, which is really fun. There's you know, all sorts of stuff, and I think you'll have a great time. So we would hope to see you there.
Everyone, that was our show this week. Next week, we're back with our best of the year episode. So get ready. We're going to fill your TBRs. Get ready to purchase your box from a queer feminist bookstore in Pennsylvania. So that'll be next Wednesday. But as of right now, I am Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend, Jen Prokop. We are Fated Mates. We are here for you every Wednesday, wherever you listen to your podcasts, for as long as you will listen to us. You can find us at fatedmates.net, where show notes exist. We list all the books that we talk about every week there. We also, try to put the links that to things that we discuss there. Show notes are often really robust, and you'll enjoy them, we think. We are now on Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can find us at Fated Mates Pod or Fated Mates at all of those places. And please support your local independent bookstore or your local library when you click on the links to buy the books that we talked about on the show. Love you.